All right, Jules, I don't know. Did you know that I lived in San Diego? Okay,
I
so
did
here's,
not know you lived in San Diego. Why did you
I
move from
did.
San Diego?
It's
You left the
Y2K.
West Coast to
I
move.
do. Families on the West Coast and everything. It's because a job. New York came calling. I had to go. But
Oh, that broadcast life.
that broadcast life. But it's also where my salsa career, such as going to the salsa club 2 to 3 times a week. That's when that was happening too. I don't do that
The
anymore.
unpaid salsa
The
career. I had
unpaid
one of
salsa
those.
career. I was awesome. I was awesome. But here's the thing. I bring up my San Diego nostalgia because our guest today lives in San Diego. I love San Diego. Loved and love San Diego to this day. So we are going, full into this with my love for San Diego with our guest today, who is just, while our paths never crossed, did not know her. I am certain that while I was there, her little business itch, that was taking form in her mind while we were both cohabitating separately in San Diego. I'm positive.
You didn't know her then, but you're going to get to know her now. And she's doing some really incredible things. San Diego's fun and we love San Diego. And I'm a little jealous that today she's in San Diego and I'm not. But that's not the highlight of our guest. We've got some really cool things that she's going to share with us, and we're just going to have a blast. Let's dive in. The Think Tank of Three podcast starts now.
Welcome to another episode of the Think Tank of Three alongside my co-host, Julie Holton. I am Risha Candidate Kapasuris. And our third mind of amazing is Christine McDannell, who has done nothing short of kicking some serious butt in the realm of starting, acquiring, and selling businesses. Over 20 plus.
You're going to expect her to be like 80 years old, and she is not, folks. In fact, Christine was so successful at this whole startup thing that she was recognized in 2009 by the Small Business Administration as Person of the Year for her first company, Cleanology. In 2010, the next year, Cleanology was listed as one of the 100 most brilliant businesses by Entrepreneur magazine. Christine decided to put the success she developed for herself to good, and now she works with others. She started the Magnolia firm, and it helps business owners really grab that glass ring of selling their companies. I'm so excited to welcome Christine to the show. Hey, Christine.
Hi, thanks for having me on. Really excited about this.
Christine, I can't even wrap my mind around the ability of starting a business in my early 20s. In my early 20s, I was literally I was doing what I was doing in broadcasting, but there is
You
no
were
way
salsa dancing.
I
We
was
heard
salsa dancing with tequila in one hand and my high heels in the other, and then reporting on the Padres, in between. But I cannot imagine the thought process of starting, developing, creating, making it work, and then, oh, by the way, let me sell businesses in my early 20s, let alone doing that over and over and over successfully, 20 plus. Where did this ability, did this desire, where did this come from for you?
And it's funny, I was just looking at the calendar, my 20-year anniversary of being a business, of starting my first company back in the day, December 7th, 2003. So it'll be a 20-year anniversary here coming up in a couple months. It seems like just yesterday. So yeah, that first one was, I was always the girl with the lemonade stands, and my whole life, I was born to do this. There's no doubt in my mind. It's my favorite hobby in the world. I love everything about business, eat, sleep, breathe, read, probably drive all my friends nuts about it. But yeah, Cleanology was my first business, which was just, a cleaning company downtown San Diego. And, I had $300 and I, started cleaning every single day for a year and a half, which is pretty crazy. And bartending at night to pay the bills. But when you're 23, that's, you're willing to, you got the energy and you're going to do whatever it takes to get something off the ground. And I was willing to do that.
You were hustling. That's what you were doing. You were hustling.
Oh yeah.
I totally get that hustle. And, I want to point out though, so I looked at some stats, Christine, because our audience, a lot of women in our audience. And before we get into like kind of the fun stuff, like I really want to talk about some of the serious side of building a business, scaling a business, selling a business, because it really, I feel like I've become, as a business owner myself, I feel like I've become an accidental feminist in many ways, because I see what's happening and I experience what's happening to women in business. And I just want to make a difference. And so talking about it is at least one thing we can do. You're doing more than that. We'll get to that in a moment. But let's look at some stats comparing women entrepreneurs to their male counterparts. In the US, about 40% of businesses are women owned. Women contribute as business owners close to $1.8 trillion to the US economy. This is incredible. But funding wise, remember 40% of businesses are women owned. Funding, women entrepreneurs receive just 2 to 3% of venture capital funding, clearly significantly less than the male counterparts. And we could go on and on and on with these statistics that show that women build incredible businesses, but they don't get the funding. Perhaps there's a lack of support. There's also a statistic that talks about women. I think it's less than 75% of women even look at or think about scaling their businesses to that $1 million milestone. And so what do these numbers say to you? What do you speak from your experience? What do these numbers mean about women in business?
Well, a couple of things. So right now there are more women starting companies than men, which is really interesting. So that's a new thing. The funding issue, we have to look at the other side of it, is that men just grow companies quicker, larger, faster. So those are larger companies a lot of times from the men that are getting funding versus women that are just starting out. And I see it in my firm. So we were women, all my clients were female and business owners. We were selling. And so then it wasn't like I wouldn't help men, of course not. But then the guys started coming to me and like, oh, help us. Why are you only helping women? I'm like, no, well, I'll help anybody, of course. It was just the females coming to me in the beginning. And then we jumped up market like overnight. So from doing $300,000 transactions to $3 million transactions. And that's just the way the world is right now. Men have the larger companies because they've been in the game longer. And so, and it's unfortunate. So now we have mostly, male clients right now. Yeah, more men than females. So it kind of flipped a little bit. So that's part of what's going on.
Do you think that men are more likely than women to be pursuing these bigger goals, bigger dreams? I mean, Rish, we've had people on the show talking about how women are less likely to go for a job unless they meet 100% of the qualifications, versus men. I'll be like, I don't know if I can do it, but I'm going to say that I can, and then I'm going to show up and try. So like, what do you think is kind of the root cause or kind of driving force behind some of these differences?
Yeah, you're exactly right, Julie. A lot of it is some sort of insecurity. I think women naturally are like, oh, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if, so they doubt themselves. They overthink a lot of stuff. And what's sad is that it's so crazy. It's like across the board, women will come to me and they will undervalue their company. Oh, Christine, I don't think it's worth anything. I'm just going to give it to my employee. I have a bunch of these stories time and time again, just recently. 20-year business, super strong business. She's like, well, I don't think it's worth anything, or I think it's worth 50,000 or some like crazy low number. Then the men, again, I don't want to stereotype, but this is just like the data I personally have. My company's worth multi-millions. I'm like, whoa. It's not like, let's
No.
let's go back to reality. So there's just this kind of insecurity thing that's happening, I think, with women, their value, their self-worth kind of is translating to the worth of their business. It's very odd. And I keep seeing it happen very frequently, which is, yeah. So I think that is part of it.
I took my daughter to see the Barbie movie. I did not have the intention of going to see the Barbie movie. So the fact that I am saying this just kind of blows my mind. But I took her to see the Barbie movie, and she's a little young. So a lot of it actually went over her head because it was a very strong woman message. And it really, you literally, and the Barbie movie is what I'm talking about here. Okay. Not, but in this movie, they basically break down women and what women are dealing with. So like in Barbie Land, and spoiler, if you haven't seen it, go see it, by the way, or stream it, what have you. It's Barbie Land is all about the women president, women owners, and it's not a second thought. She goes to the real world, and no, that's not how it works. She comes back, Barbie Land's a hot mess. And America Ferrera lays down a speech that basically said what you just said, Christine, but then encompasses all facets of women and life, undervaluing themselves, taking themselves for granted, it's not even about forcefully taking themselves for granted because they don't want to seem overbearing, or they won't want to do this, or we're trying to be perfect, but don't be, all the women were sitting in theater, including myself, like when she's doing a speech, like, yes, because it was such an amazing message. And it blows my mind that we are still in this frame of thought, in this frame of mind in 2023, where men in general, like you said, are automatically saying, I got this, no problem. I can overvalue, it'll be fine, it'll all work itself out. And we're like, well, I don't want to go too far up that ladder because I don't want anything to blow back on me that so let me just go under, let me go low, because it's gonna be better to go low instead of just saying, damn it, I know what I'm doing. This is what the company is, this is what the company's worth, and I dare you to try and challenge me on it, and then let's work this out. And I think that you've tapped into that, Christine. I think that the fact that you have shown that not only have you started, acquired, sold all of these different businesses, you have that mindset. Now, we talked briefly about the fact that you're part Greek, me being married to a Greek, a hardworking class of individuals and people that are just getting out there. Do you think that is part of this? That Greek side is just like, damn it, I believe in me. It's the pilotemo.
I'm half Greek and half Italian. So yeah, it's definitely a confidence thing. It's definitely like, and I was raised by my father. So it's like, I have more masculine energy, especially in the business world. I'll swing real masculine on that side of things. Still have a femininity, but I could turn it off, turn it on when I need to. So for me, I am confident. I know, I could kick butt or whatever. And I was lucky enough to be raised by a father that never said, oh, you're a girl, you can't do that. He treated me, he had 2 daughters, he didn't have any sons, and he just taught me, treated me like a person. It was never like, oh, you're just a girl. I've never heard that. So when I went in the business world, and again, 20 years, a lot's changed in 20 years, thank God. Mm-hmm. But, a little 23-year-old coming to land a client, and they were like, oh, where's your business partner and what's his name? I'm like, multiple times. Like, I'm like, well, I don't have a business partner. And they're like, it's just you have this business on your own, but you're a girl. Like, it was weird. And again, it seems like that sounds crazy only 20 years ago, but that's what was happening. And it was I always called myself a business person. It's so funny. I wouldn't even call myself a businesswoman. I just was like, oh, we're all business people. And then I even was hesitant, which I did. I became the president of the National Association of Women Business Owners here in San Diego, which was tricky for me because I'm like, I don't want women to keep having our own groups.
Separate category.
Yes. So that's what you're doing. Hey, we want to be treated like the guys, but whoa, we want our own groups. So it was always a dichotomy for me. It was tricky to navigate that, to be honest, because I'm like, well, now we're separating ourselves, but we want to join, we want to be equals. So
I remember when General Motors announced their first first woman CEO, and friends were sending me the headline and they're like, isn't this amazing? Doesn't this make you feel great? And I was pissed because the headline's like, GM announces first female CEO. And I'm like, that shouldn't be the headline. The headline should be who she is and what she brings to the company. And the fact that she's a woman is just, that's just science. And so, yes, I can relate to so much of what you're saying, as a woman, obviously business owner myself, still today in 2023, I'm sitting at tables full of men. I just joined a new board and I'm the only woman at the table. And I almost don't even notice anymore, except I look for it because most of the circles I'm in business are all men. And frankly, ladies, like when I, for Startup Grind Lansing, for example, part of my job is to book the presenters and to bring in speakers that are going to, and so we're trying to make it diverse, and I want as many awesome, high-powered women as possible. And honestly, it can be hard sometimes. Women who hold themselves back or just aren't as, numerous in the field. Christine, I'm curious for you, what has had the biggest impact on you walking into the startup world? What keeps you coming back?
Oh my gosh. It's like the challenge, the climb, the building something from scratch. Again, for someone to do 10 startups and exit them is like absolutely insanity. That's, so out of the 20 plus, 10 of those were startups that I exited and started from scratch. But it's like me overhearing, which happens a lot in San Diego, because most of the businesses were started here. And because I've been here mostly for the 20 years, just overhearing someone talk about Cleanology or Eco Chateau. And I'm like, oh my God, I started that company. And they're like, what? Which is really cool to overhear, right? Something I built from scratch. So that motivates me. That keeps me going. I always said no more startups, but then obviously Magnolia Firm is a startup. My friends, every time I say, this is the last startup, they're like, yeah, sure, Christine, we don't believe you. But yeah, that's what keeps me going.
When I was living in San Diego, I had a hairstylist. She used to work out of her house. And I remember when I went to her place, I remember noticing an unfinished room, paint splotches everywhere. She was trying to figure out what she wanted to do. She hadn't decided on what she wanted to do with the space. And then she kind of chuckled at me when I asked her about it. And she said, it also makes my husband nervous because basically it's telling him that there's big change coming to my life. Because every time I start working on a space, something's about to happen with me and my career. That was her tell. That was her big tell. So having sold your companies many times over, acquired and sold many times over, I have to imagine that you yourself have a tell within that it's time to move on. It's time to let this one go. What is that internal clock for you that says it's the time, let's do this?
Great question. And I just want to say here on the podcast, I don't have kids. So this is why I have so much time. My businesses are my kids. So it's pretty simple answer. It's never a timeline, and it's never a dollar amount ever. It's just this, and it's typically around the 5-year mark. It always feels like it's at the point of the company of stability, which is what everybody wants. I was even in Europe. I was in Europe with somebody, and he's like, and they didn't need me anymore at the spot. We were about at the 4-year mark, 5-year. And I'm like, oh my God, they left me alone the entire month because they knew I'd worked my ass off for, 4 years straight. Don't bother Christine. She's in Europe on vacation for a month. And then I saw they broke the $100,000 a month, which is like you break a 6-figure revenue month. That's a big deal. First off, second, yeah, it was the biggest month of the company. And I just was like devastated. I'm like, oh my God. And he's like, what's wrong? Like, your company is running without you. It's what everybody dreams of. And I said, they don't need me anymore. And like, I'm bored. So it's when
wait, that was it right there. I'm bored.
I'm bored. I'm like, the chaos is over.
Is too boring.
Yeah, I need the chaos. I need this. Actually, my team would not like me coming back from a vacay because they say I'd start doing all these new initiatives. Or, oh God, here's she's back from vacay. Now she's going to start, doing new initiatives and turning up the heat again. Because we always scaled very quickly and it was pretty crazy. So it's when the management's in place, the systems are in place. I'm really only wearing the marketing hat because I never give that one up, but I'm not, I'm there part-time, and that's when, because then I start losing the passion on board, and it's not fair to my clients and it's not fair to my team. So.
Okay, Christine, we have to talk Richard Branson.
Okay.
Because I know, but we're getting tight on time. Not everyone gets to say, oh yeah, I had breakfast with Richard Branson in Paris. So you have to share the story with our audience. Tell us about this.
Yeah. And I do have 10 more minutes if you guys have any other follow-up questions, but I will tell this story. So gosh, where did I start? So years ago, this is back when I first started my spa. So this might've been I started 2012, maybe 2014, 15. He was speaking. I'm a massive fan since in my early 20s. I've read every book, and I'm a fan because he's always happy and he has all these companies, and so adventurous and like just loves what he does. And he's built such amazing companies. And so that just inspired me. I'm like, yeah, look, you could be an entrepreneur and you can have a blast. So read all his books. So I met him here in San Diego, was speaking. I got there an hour early. I sat in the front row and I wrote a check for Virgin Unite, which is his charity, which he fronts all the operating costs, which I'm always a fan of that, right? So your dollar's going straight to the front line. Most nonprofits, you don't know where it's going. It's going to the CEO's, huge salary. So gave him ran up on stage when he stopped speaking. Security's like taking him off. I grab his arm. Here's a check. Richard Branson, I'm your biggest fan. I love everything you do. I hand him check, I run. My business card was with it. He called the spa. I was driving home, or his assistant called the spa. Was like, they passed it to me in my car. I had to pull over. And his assistant's like, I have Sir Richard Branson on the phone for you. Would you like to take the call? I'm like, yeah, of course I'd like to take the call. And so, yeah, I spoke with him briefly and it just really moved me that he took the time. The check was small. It was $1,000. Like, who cares about that donation, And so, but he took the time to thank me and he talked to me for like 10 or 15 minutes and that stuck with me. And then fast forward, I was like, let me add a couple zeros to that check. I just like doing wild stuff, like manifesting. And so I wrote this check to Virgin Unite, an actual check from my spa, and we framed it because again, I'm really big on visualization. Put it in the break rooms of both of our locations. All 35, employees, women saw it every day. They knew what we were going to do. I don't know when we're going to cut this check. It's a big check. Like there was no way, it was kind of like, oh my God, how are we going to cut this big of a check? And then I had it even in my home. And yeah, when I exited the company, we were able to cut the check. And I was able to email somebody that knew him. And then he put me in touch. And the subject was like, I've got another check for you, but I got 2 more zeros on it. So yeah, he was sweet. He's like, my only ask is I just hand it to you. I'll run away again, whatever. And he's like, I'm in Paris, if you want to come over here. Yeah, sure. And then we have breakfast. Which I wasn't expecting. And I talked to him for an hour and he's such an incredible guy, like so incredible. And then I just saw him again, just a couple months ago on the Virgin cruise ship. I was at a conference and I knew he was going to be there, but I knew everybody would be kind of going after him. So I just like quickly, like, I don't even know if he knew it was me. I just like quickly like fist bumped him. Everybody was going after him. So it's like, so yeah, it was nice to see him again, just super briefly. And now there's another check I promised to cut. So I'm working on that one now with an extra zero because I told him that and then he blogged about it.
Listen, first of all, that's just amazing. It's amazing because he's like, yeah, why don't you just come to Paris? You're like, yeah, sure. Okay, whatever. Here's your check. But there has to be a feeling. You talked about the visualization, $100,000. You hit that mark. You set that goal. You hit that mark. Tell me what that feels like, because that's some stuff that's just, especially now that you're able to move on to that next goal and you're almost there. That moment when it happened.
That's so, and I bought my dream car, which was right. I had this rule. I was afraid, maybe this is a female thing. I don't know. I felt guilty paying that much for my dream car. I thought when I'm driving it, I'm going to be like, I don't know, it's a lot of money. And I feel like that money could be best served elsewhere. It's kind of, and I have such a great life. So I'm like, oh shit, buy this. My rule was that car couldn't be more than 100 grand. It's like right under it. So honestly, that helped tremendously. It's weird. It was kind of like, well, I don't feel guilty about buying this car now because I just donated to charity. It's so counterintuitive, and it did take me, I've learned this years ago, luckily. The more you give, the more you get. There's no doubt in my mind. Yeah, you guys are shaking your heads. Yes. It sounds crazy and like counterintuitive. Like, how is that possible? My life since that, this all went down 2017. That's when I exited the spa, and my life is so idyllic, like insanely magical, travel the world, live where I want, do what I want. It's crazy and I know it's because I give. So it's just a great feeling of like, I get to do what I love. I get to live a cool life. I get to donate and help others that really, really need it. And Virgin Unite, if you guys want to anybody want to research listening, they have so many different causes. And the CEO of Virgin Unite, she was actually with the three of us at the breakfast. And they're like, Christine, where do you want to put this 100 grand? How do you want to distribute it? They help seniors, they help people in Africa, I go, guys, you guys are the experts, wherever you see fit. Like, I'm not on the ground, like seeing where it's needed. whatever you guys would do, I totally trust you guys. So yeah, it's a good feeling.
Bravo.
Christine, I know you have to run. We normally ask 3 rapid fire questions. I'm going to ask you just one because I think that we want to leave our guests, our audience, with one final piece of advice from you. What would you say to a woman who is maybe struggling in her confidence, but aspiring to something bigger? What piece of advice would you give her?
This is going to sound interesting. So all of my mentors, all the people I follow online are men, now that I think about it. I think you almost have to start listening, you know, almost every single one of them. It's so crazy. Even all my coaches, even all my mentors, because I think then it's kind of a hack on shifting and getting that kind of mindset just automatically, because again, they have more confidence naturally and they go for things. They're more driven. They're more, you know, there's a ton of reasons, I guess, why, you know, maybe men excel better than female. And let me also say this to everybody listening, there is nothing wrong. And I just spoke with one yesterday that has a really great profitable business, small. So she's like, oh, it's so small, but she's a stay-at-home mom. She only works, you know, 10 hours a week. She's making 6 figures. I'm like, bravo. I was like, please don't, you know, everybody listening, it's totally cool to have a lifestyle business. Doesn't need to be multi-million dollars. You're a stay-at-home mom. You're a great wife. You're superwoman. You're trying, you know, you're doing everything. So I would say that too, because I think there's people listening that start feeling like, oh, well, I need to grow a big company. Not everybody does. And I think lifestyle businesses are amazing, and just designing your life to where you can be home. And our team, out of 6 of us, 3 of them have all new babies under the age of 12 months, 3 out of 6 of them. And they work from home, and Kessie, like you know, he's in the crib next to her, and as we're on a Zoom meeting, and I love that. I'm like, this is so cool that you get to work and be a mom and he's not in daycare.
You have to find what works for you and make it work for you. It's not what that person's dream is. It's what is your dream? What are you looking to do? Christine, it has been wonderful sitting here talking with you. We thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us today. It's been wonderful. It's been so much fun. You have so much knowledge, and guys, look further into her and look up Virgin Unite. There's a lot of wonderful stuff that they are doing there. But that is going to do it for us here on the Think Tank of 3. Please remember to subscribe. That is how we share that love. Spread it around to all of your friends and loved ones, because we could definitely use it here. Thanks so much. That'll do it for this episode of Think Tank of 3.